I think for a lot of our listeners, many of them don't even know what the SBA is. So why don't we just start with the definition of what the SBA is and why it exists?
Yeah, I can start there, Khalil. That's a good question. And so SBA really it's a government agency that works alongside the banks that provide a percentage guarantee for banks, right? A lot of people think that they work with SBA directly to lend the money. Actually, they work directly with the bank. So in this case, we have a company looking for an SBA loan. They'll work directly with me, and we use the SBA product to have that guarantee, so that client can get the reasonable terms that they couldn't otherwise be available for them, right? And SBA, that's what it allow us to do. And there are different products, but simple terms, really, it's a product that commercial bankers and banks can use to mitigate risk and provide more reasonable terms to companies.
So does every bank offer the same thing? I mean, I know they're a preferred.
Yep.
Anyway.
So there's a. I'm glad you brought this point, Martin, because the first questions that I will encourage business owners to ask a bank if they're looking for an SBA loan is, are you a preferred SBA lender? And what really that means is SBA is giving a designation authority to the bank to make the final credit decisions. So all the underwriting, all the decisions really happen in-house. And different banks will have their credit appetite, what they specialize on, but there's SBA rules that they have to meet, and then there's a credit appetite that each bank will be more competitive, that they like. And another question, and Cashin, feel free to jump in here, is the bank more focused on cash flow, or is the bank more focused on collateral, right? Cash flow, the different appetites, and in our space is more of cash flow, right? We look at historical financial data to see if that business or that real estate they're buying can service the debt that they're for the loan, right? But that's pretty much the basics of it. Cashin, do you have any comments there?
Yeah, I think you did a good job, and you point out an important distinction. Excuse me. But anybody looking to talk to their bank or have a friend that's a banker, your first question you're going to want to ask is if they are a preferred lender with the SBA, which, as Gonzo said, that means that bank has the delegated authority to approve and originate loans, and so there's zero interaction with the actual government, which is important. If you're not, imagine going to the DMV to get a business loan. It would be a really, really horrible experience because you have to ship the file off to the SBA. They have to underwrite it. It just takes forever. So we've seen a lot of new entrants into SBA lending with all the SBA-related pandemic loan programs that came out. But it's important that you work with a bank that's not only preferred, but they have in-house expertise, a proven track record, a complete operations team. If it starts to get piecemealed, it really waters down the origination experience.
Yeah, very interesting. So we know what the SBA is now and that we can use it to get our loan. You mentioned creativity and flexibility earlier. And I'm sure that happens because the loan is guaranteed by the government. But what are some of the flexibilities and creativity that you're able to bring to the business owner that they wouldn't be able to get through a traditional loan?
Cashin, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. To simplify it, I like to say that it provides terms that otherwise wouldn't be available, that typically manifests itself in lower down payments and longer repayment terms.
Gotcha.
So better cash flow.
Yep, it helps improve cash flow, and it helps the business owner retain cash because they're not having to outlay as much for the down payment. And I think the underlying theory there, when they created the SBA back in the 50s, was, you got to remember, like, lending to businesses, especially small businesses, is still kind of a new idea for banks. It really wasn't something that they wanted to lend into until about the 90s. And that's where you saw the SBA really start to pick up and lean into their business model a little more, because they're like, gosh, we really need to dangle a bigger carrot to these banks to lend into what it was historically considered a higher risk demographic. And so the the 75% guarantee or 50%, depending on the loan program that Gonzo alluded to, was a big push to help us, move into lending to this sector. And so it's a true win-win-win, right? So the bank gets to extend terms, and they can rely on the mitigant of that guarantee to help typically plug one or maybe two weaknesses in the credit profile. Meanwhile, the borrower gets a win because, again, they're retaining cash or getting better repayment terms. And then actually the government and the taxpayer gets a win as well, because right now, as it stands, none of the SBA loan programs are subsidized by taxpayers. The borrower pays a fee at origination. We pay a fee embedded into our interest rate into the SBA to keep it unsubsidized from taxpayers. It's actually accretive to the bottom line for the government, which is unheard of these days. And that's why you're seeing it really grow in popularity, and it enjoys bipartisan support. Both Democrats and Republicans look at it as a job creation program, and that's always going to get support in Congress.